Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. For all you focused learners out there, we are essentially putting on our digital detective hats for this one. We are conducting a forensic digital autopsy to uncover a catastrophic architectural failure happening right beneath our screens. We're talking about the hidden mathematical collapse of the internet. Our source material points to a terrifying reality that the very architecture of the web is rotting from the inside out. Let's look at the first piece of evidence.
Google is a snake eating its own tail. I mean, wow, it's a chilling quote straight from our sources, and it instantly establishes the massive, macro-level stakes of our investigation. We're looking at a built-in paradox where the ultimate answer engine is mathematically destined to consume its own food supply. But to really grasp how we got to this point, we need to examine what the web used to be and what it's rapidly becoming.
And this brilliantly illustrates that shift. The contrast here is just stark. The old web was a thriving digital commons, right? It was rich with diverse, human-authored voices and independent expert sites where genuine knowledge was freely shared. But we are rapidly moving toward the reality of the AI-gated web. Out here, independent voices are buried under an absolute deluge of AI-generated slop. Human authorship gets reduced to these tiny ignored footnotes, and the open commons is completely closed off behind search engine walls.
The collateral damage of this shift is staggering. Thousands. Literally thousands. That is the number of hobby blogs and small independent companies that simply vanished overnight following recent algorithm updates. Sites like HouseFresh, places built by passionate experts who actually knew something worth knowing and gave it away for free, were suddenly buried. They'd have a great year, an update would hit, and then total collapse. The traffic didn't move somewhere better, it just vanished.
Okay, let's dive into this. The mechanism driving this collapse is what the sources identify as the AI siphon effect. Tech monopolies have fundamentally shifted their relationship with the web. It's no longer a partner, it's a raw feedstock. Search engines now absorb vast amounts of human-written content and use AI to summarize it, handing the reader the answer without ever sending them away. The original writer's credit shrinks to a footnote, traffic to independent experts completely stops, and the user, well, they just read the summary and close the tag.
When you visualize the actual traffic distribution, the impact becomes crystal clear. Look at this massive, explosive growth in traffic being captured and retained entirely by AI overviews. Meanwhile, megasites like Wikipedia and Reddit are holding stable, but look at that third category. Independent expert sites are completely flatlining. The AI overview effectively acts as the initial murder weapon here, serving as a bottleneck that starves the actual human creators of the traffic and revenue they absolutely need to survive.
Let's move to Section 1 and see how this builds. The wood chipper effect. Descent to the metal. To truly understand this, we have to descend all the way down to the silicon metal. Researchers call this process the wood chipper effect, and it chronologically traces exactly how mathematical truth is lost. Step 1. The AI ingests exact human source data, like a copyrighted article. Step 2. The hardware encounters incredibly complex math and approximates it. And Step 3. Because that math was a guess and not a precise, trackable calculation, the original data provenance, the exact path of that information, is permanently destroyed. The culprit behind this is a microscopic piece of hardware called the FPU Gambler, or floating point unit. To process massive amounts of data at blistering speeds, the FPU uses proprietary, secret silicon tables to estimate math. In the process, it constantly performs microscopic rounding, permanently dropping tiny fractions in what's known as the 23rd bit chop. Because of this microscopic hardware rounding difference, true forensic traceability becomes mathematically impossible. So, the crucial point is this terrifying number right here, 80 to 90%. That is the estimated percentage of AI compute cycles relying entirely on these hardware approximations rather than exact math. When massive large language models are doing their heavy lifting, they are mostly using hardware that fundamentally just guesses the nearest mathematical truth. It's an estimation system, not real arithmetic.
To connect this incredibly complex math to our everyday reality, the source material offers this brilliant metaphor. The FPU acts like a giant blender. You know exactly what fruit you tossed in, but there is absolutely no way to reverse engineer that smoothie back into the exact fruits it came from. I mean, you can't unblend a strawberry. Once the data is blended by the FPU Gambler, you permanently lose the chain of title. The human author is literally liquidated.
Let's go deeper into the autopsy with Section 2, Fax machine decay and the tokenization bottleneck.
We have to uncover how this lossy, microscopic hardware failure scales up into massive cognitive failures for the AI. Think about the immense contrast here. The human mind is continuous, fluid, and capable of actual logical planning. It's beautiful and messy. But large language models, they operate more like old-school fax machines or lossy zip files. They are bottlenecked by discrete tokens. They don't have true working memory. They are purely probabilistic pattern matchers, just guessing the next most likely word based on highly compressed data.
The physical hardware demands that fluid human thoughts be violently crushed into discrete numerical IDs through algorithms like byte-pair encoding. This arbitrary chopping completely destroys continuous concepts. For example, to an AI, the beautiful, holistic mathematical concept of pi literally shatters into arbitrary subwords, a 3, a decimal point, a 14, and a 159. This modality gap makes genuine arithmetic technically impossible for the machine and triggers associative bleed, where concepts mash together, causing those infamous AI hallucinations and triggering total semantic collapse.
Which brings us to Section 3, vanishing point probabilities.
Because these machines are built on those degraded approximations we just talked about, we face vanishing point probabilities. This defines the mathematical certainty that as a system learns from self-referencing copies, the microscopic errors don't just stay flat, they compound infinitely. This is the core theory that links the microscopic FPU hardware failures directly to the macroscopic rot of the internet. When an AI trains on data produced by an AI, semantic collapse is simply inevitable. Claude Shannon's foundational work on rate distortion theory proved that anytime you compress a signal, you introduce measurable degradation. And Kyle McLean-Smith's research on these vanishing point probabilities states the physical laws of digital duplication clearly. Errors in duplication can be remedied to arbitrary accuracy if noise remains less than 50%. But what happens when we cross that physical law?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is visualizing that exact dangerous threshold. We have 50% preserved signal and 50% terminal noise. Once the internet is flooded with AI-generated content and the next generation of AI trains on that synthetic data, the noise threshold is breached. The signal, the genuine human truth, is permanently lost to algorithmic distortion. At that point, the system can literally no longer remedy the errors. And that pulls all the evidence together for our final conclusion in Section 4, the dead internet spiral.
Let's walk through this ultimate Ouroboros timeline. 1. A human writes an original brilliant thought. 2. Google's AI summarizes it, stealing the traffic. 3. Deprived of revenue, the independent expert site dies. 4. Because the human source is gone, the AI is now forced to train on its own lossy, degraded summary. And 5. Total semantic collapse. The tech monopoly's business model mathematically forces their own engines to eat their own degraded output. And this right here is the horrifying real-world aftermath of that spiral. The slow rot sets in. Each new version of the AI drifts further from the truth. The errors pile up. Human thought flattens into a pale imitation of what came before. The shared library of the internet is locked. And ultimately, doubt and cynicism become the absolute default state of the web. You start questioning if a real person wrote anything you are reading anymore.
But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Our deep dive also reveals a proactive glimmer of hope. We actually can mathematically protect human authorship and reclaim the digital commons. First, we must shift away from those probabilistic FPU gamblers and utilize exact deterministic hardware called ALU surveyors for absolute truth. Second, human pilots must apply the sweat of the brow to physically, manually prune and verify the machine's output. And on the business side, publishers are pushing for really simple licensing to charge the machines directly for access. This replaces lost clicks with verifiable digital property rights to restore sovereign publishing.
The architecture to fix this exists, but the clock is ticking on the open web. So I want to leave you with this haunting question to deeply ponder as you navigate your digital life today. If an answer engine eats its own food supply faster than it can be replenished, what happens when it finally runs out of things to say? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning the systems around you, and I will catch you next time.